Hey all. I'm going to do a little lesson on the riff for Paperback Writer, but also we're going to talk about the song. Something a little bit different. A deep dive on Paperback Writer. The reason for this is we did LA Woman the other day. And it wasn't until I actually played through it and thought about it, I was like, well, you know what, that's a 2-chord song. It's just A for most of it, and it goes down to G, city and line. But really just those 2 chords. So I got to thinking, what's another 2-chord, a simple one we could do? And Paperback Writer is pretty simple, especially if you're trying to come to terms with riffs and stuff. This one's a pretty easy one. It's instructive to listen to the session outtake, because they only did one complete take of it. There was a breakdown though. When I went up to C, it broke down, but then they went through it start to finish, and that's the take you hear. So it was really only probably one of the shorter sessions to get it down. And I also saw, when I was looking up to tune to it, I just did a search for Paperback Writer because I wanted to tune my G chord to theirs, and saw some other people doing it. And I think people are hearing it a little bit wrong, so I want to do my version of it. So I'm calling it a 2-chord song. Technically, it's 4, because if you listen, you can especially hear it in the outtake. You know, they overdub all the vocals and stuff later. They're just doing the instrumental track. So to get the intro right, you know, Ringo taps it out on the cymbal, and then George goes, so it starts C, back, G, A, D. But since that's just a vocal thing and you don't play it on guitar, we're going to call it a 2-chord song. The main riff, the way it chugs along, well, a couple of things. One, it sounds to me like George is on the SG, which was his sort of 1966 studio guitar, a lot of it anyway. Still using the Casino, I'm sure, especially live. He had a 335 he used at 1 or 2 shows as a spare, maybe broke a string, I don't know. And also there are some live pictures of them on stage in '66 where you can see his SG off to the side of the stage, like as his other spare. So, but I don't know that he ever played it on stage. I have to look up some pictures. But I think that's the SG for this one. And John used a Gretsch 6120, the only time he ever used it. And I think he gave it to his cousin or friend or something shortly after the session and never used it again. But if you look up John Lennon Gretsch and just do an image search for it, you'll see it's a double cut 6120. I'm not sure why he never used it again. The riff, there's sort of 2 ways George is playing the riff. That's one, and the other one is. I haven't listened to it close enough to see if there's a pattern to when he does each one. I think it's basically mostly one of them all the way through, and then when it gets to that last break before the outro, he does it different. But it's a G riff. Just restrung this thing. So you go low G note, E at the 3rd. So you hammer on A, 3, 5, and then you're hammering on A and D at the same time. So I'm using one finger to do it. Hammer on A, 3, 5, and then hit that D at 5. And then you sort of pedal the G through this. And that's D at 3. Yeah, D at 3. Back to low G again. That's A, 3 to 5. I'm doing it kind of staccato, but you don't do it like that. So you end on the A at 5. The other way to do it is almost identical all the way through except for the very end. It goes 3, 5 on A to D at 3. Now, when I looked it up and saw other people playing it, a lot of them are doing this. It's not that, because you can pretty clearly hear it. Well, put headphones on and listen to the finished track and you can hear it. But especially in the outtake version, you can definitely hear it. Just hit a 5th chord. Make sure you get A and D both in there. That's just our friend Chuck Berry, Boogie Woogie. You know. Now he goes up to C, and he doesn't do it here, because you can hear again if you listen to the outtake, you can hear him sort of slide up to it. And I don't think he does anything on this except hold. But I like to do it. I just like to throw it. But I don't know if he's doing that. That's it. John is just doing it. Really should have stretched these strings out before I did a video. I think John's just strumming chords. Maybe it's this. In fact, it sounds more like this. So John's just doing those 2 chords, not doing the riff. A couple of things. One, on there's different promos for it. When they went out to Chiswick House, they edited them together for a few different versions of that video. But there's also one that they did in the studio, which I think is number 2 at Abbey Road. And the interesting thing is, when they were shooting that video, they also shot that picture that's on the back cover of the Revolver album, where they all got their sunglasses on. But that was all shot. And you know, if you watch, and somebody posted it recently on YouTube. This is for Beatles fanatics that want to get into the minutiae of it. They did the clips for Paperback Writer and Rain that they shot in the studio, and sent those over to Ed Sullivan, because by '66 they weren't flying to New York to be on the Sullivan Show. They'd shoot a promo clip and send that over instead. So, you know, they're sitting there and they're sort of on the piano, and Ringo says, "Hey, here's our new, hope you like them, one's Rain, one's Paperback." But they're sitting there, and you can tell right after they shot that little Ed Sullivan intro, that's when they took that photo. That's when they took that picture for the back cover of Revolver, because everybody's in the same spots. Ringo's standing there, Paul's sitting on the piano. So the Beatles were very efficient of their time, so they did everything all at once. And in fact, the very start of that little clip before Ringo starts talking, the picture comes up and they're all standing there and they have like pieces of plastic over their face, and then they set those down. If you look really closely, you can see they're looking at the proof sheets for the Butcher cover. So they must have been reviewing those to pick out the one they liked for that Yesterday and Today album cover. So it's just a little kind of cool little detail that you notice when you watch the stuff. But the last thing is they shot the promo clips for Rain and Paperback Writer at Chiswick House in outside of London. I don't know if that is. Yeah, it's outside of London. And in it would have been 2004, our 10th wedding anniversary, my wife and I. We went over to London, and of course I had a big map planned out of Beatles locations I needed to see in London, the London area. So one day we took the train out and went to Chiswick, and went to Chiswick House. So went to the statuary garden, and you know the Paperback Writer video starts off with that shot of that statue head. So I got pictures of that. I leaned up against that planter thing that Ringo sits there in the background. He's bored, leaning up against that thing. There's one in Rain. There's this shot where they're sitting on this, standing next to this tree, and John is sitting on that one tree limb, which sort of is like a little bench, which is still there, or still was there in 2004. And I sat right on that spot. I was like, John Lennon's rear end was right here. Went to that bench outside the little greenhouse and got a picture there. Went inside the greenhouse, and you know, when the Beatles were there in May of '66 when they shot the stuff, it was all filled with plants and everything. When we were there, it was emptied out. There was no plants in it. But it was cool just to be in that, sit in that little circle in the middle of it and say that Ringo was right here, Paul stood right here. For a Beatle freak like me, that is just unbelievable to be there, you know. You know, of course, went to Abbey Road, and you know, in my typical American arrogance, we go to Abbey Road and walked across and did the crosswalk and everything, and the gate was open, the front gate was open. I was like, well, hell, man, you know, I'll just walk in there. So I walked in. My wife's saying, no, man, you can't go in there. I was like, what are you talking about? It's a building. The door's open. I walked up the steps, walked right in the front door, and of course, in my mind, I'm like, this must be like a museum, you know, and totally forgetting, as an idiot that I am, this is a working studio. They're working here. So I'm just in, you know, not far inside the door. There's a little reception, and she's like, "Are you here for a session?" I was like, "No, I'm just a Beatle freak." So she's like, "No, on your way, you stupid American." But anyway, I got to walk through the doors. I walked up the steps, the same steps they walked up. Really cool trip. But anyway, that's Paperback Writer, 2 chords, real easy riff if you want to sort of strum along with it and play along with it. And that's our deep dive on Paperback Writer. Very Beach Boys-y kind of. If there's a period when Paul was really feeling the Beach Boys influence, it's probably the '66 Pet Sounds period, when he was inspired by Brian Wilson. Good luck.